Welcome to my tips for the NRL for round 15. Let's have a quick look at the bets we had last week. There were four of those: the Storm, the Broncos, the Raiders, and the Panthers. We were good on all four, so the odds weren't great. They were favourites, but we did win 220 on the Storm, 370 on the Broncos, 420 on the Raiders, and 350 on the Panthers. Overall, that takes us to 16 tips, 13 winners. So very respectable strike rate there. The profit loss is just up over $4,200. So looking pretty good there with the tips that I've put in. It is only a very small sample size though. Okay, let's have a look at how the games went last week. In Knights vs Manly, we tipped Manly by 4 points, but the Knights came out and won that after Manly had a huge lead. So they kind of threw that game away. Storm versus Cowboys, as we said, that was a bet on the Storm. And the Storm went on to win that. Dolphins versus Dragons. The Dolphins absolutely killed the Dragons there. Now, we did tip the Dragons by 16 in an upset. Didn't go that way. The Dolphins look to be pretty good defensively this year. And they were able to hold the Dragons out, and the Dolphins went on to pretty much score quite a few points in that game. The Sharks versus Warriors, we had the Warriors by 8. Another upset that we went for. This one did come off, $2.84, so the odds were fairly good. Didn't end up happening for us. Didn't end up happening for the Sharks in that game, but we did get the Warriors. But we didn't end up betting on that one. Broncos versus Titans, we had the Broncos with a margin of 24. They did end up winning. Raiders versus Rabbits. The Raiders did it quite easy. Again, we had a margin of 24. Raiders went on to win at home. Tigers versus Panthers. We had the Panthers. That was a very close game. Decided by refereeing decisions. We had them by 24. It ended up being a lot closer than that, but we did end up with that bet coming off for us on the Panthers. And in yesterday's game, Bulldogs versus Eels, we took the Eels in an upset. The Eels were looking pretty good at halftime, but Bulldogs went on and won that as they should, as the favourites in that game. Eels were $3.60 underdogs, so there wasn't much of a chance of them winning, but definitely at those odds. The ratings suggested the Eels could get up and beat the Bulldogs, just didn't happen. Okay, let's have a look at what we've got this week. There's only 5 games this week, so Sharks versus Dragons. We're going to take the Sharks there with a 4-point margin. The odds are $1.33, which is way too low to bet on, so no bet on that game. But Sharks in the tipping comps. Titans versus Seagulls. We've got the Seagulls there with a 12-point margin. Now, the odds there are $1.32 for an away side that has been up and down this season. Daly Cherry Evans is meant to be putting out some announcements this week, moving to the Roosters. Let's see what happens there. But I don't think the Seagulls are going to be really focused this week, so let's ignore that game for any bets. But Seagulls on the tips. Knights versus Roosters. Roosters should do this easy, but Knights did come back well last week. We've got a 10-point predicted margin to the Roosters. $1.49 is way too low to bet on that. Won't be betting, just tipping the Roosters. Cowboys versus Dolphins. The Dolphins are the favourites here against the Cowboys. The Dolphins have been playing really well, but they've played some competition that isn't as good as what the Cowboys have been facing. So I feel like the Cowboys could get up here at home. The ratings say Dolphins by 14, which means we're not taking a bet here. $1.59 feels a bit short. If you're looking for a bet, it would be the Cowboys, but it's, again, a game that I'm going to stay away from. I do think the Cowboys can put in a good showing here. And Rabbits versus Bulldogs. It's got the Bulldogs by 12. Again, that's not enough to make it a bet, but we'll take the Bulldogs in the tipping comps, and their odds are $1.43. So this week there are no bets, and this happens. We will have weeks where we get a whole bunch, like last week with 4. Then we can go a couple of weeks without any bets, but we're looking for those good bets that are going to return a profit. There's no use putting in bets for just the sake of getting some action in. If you were looking to have a bet, it would definitely, you're going to get a little bit of value there, I think, around the Cowboys to beat the Dolphins, but that's probably the only game that I would even touch. The Seagulls are likely to win as the favourites against Titans, but who knows? Seagulls have been up and down all season. Okay, that's pretty much it for this video. No bets this week, but we definitely pulled in some good bets last week. So let's look forward to next week, and hopefully we can find some bets to get on in round 16. Thanks for watching.